How many four-letter words can I use on that?
Trying to switch to a double. Cheddar is driving. Nothing yet. Takedown, Michael Cheddar.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
Hale trying to stick him. He does. Maximus Hale the fall.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and we're going back to a solo pod this time around because we have the NCAA Wrestling Championships coming up this week in Philadelphia. No flight for me this year. Short drive, a little hour drive away here from South Jersey. That's going to be awesome. Haven't seen something that close since MSG back in 2016. That's when I was still a student over at Rutgers University. So back then, of course, taking the train in from New Brunswick right into the Garden. That was my first experience broadcasting or covering the NCAA tournament. So that was a great experience, and I can't believe we're here almost 10 years later, now in Philadelphia, of course, home of the world champion Philadelphia Eagles. But I digress. I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into it. I'll break down each bracket as we move along right here. I will give you my championship picks. I'll give you my All-American picks as well as I filled out my brackets to the T, as you can see right here with my chicken scratch. I fill them all out, wrestlebacks included. I try to do this every single year, so I also put this content up at on3.com. Of course, it'll be in written format, so you can read it there. Most of my explanation is going to be right here in spoken word, little blurbs on the written version, but you can see the easily readable breakdown there as well. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Let's start at 125 pounds. So I have Luke Lillidahl winning this one. He's the top seed from Penn State, the freshman, won the Big Ten title the other week. He looked very impressive. 19-2 on the year. Everyone says, well, he had to pay the Kale tax, and yes, he did. He did lose twice this season. Not a big deal. Losses to Rutgers' Dean Peterson and Ohio State's Brendan McCrone in the dual season, but he ran the table at the Big Ten tournament. I think he's ultimately going to win this one. I really debated between him and number 2 seed Matt Ramos of Purdue to win this one, but we're going to get a 1 versus 2 matchup. I do think that Ramos could get him back here, but you know what? I have to chalk it up to the Penn State Magic, and I hate to do that because it's an easier pick to make. You're not really taking a risk here with this pick almost with either Lillidahl or even Ramos for that matter, but I do have a 1 versus 2 matchup between Lillidahl and Ramos. I just like the way he's wrestling right now. He's starting to peak right now. Not that Ramos isn't. Again, his only loss this year is to Lillidahl. So could he get him back in an NCAA final? Sure. But when I look at Ramos, he's looking better than he ever has. That I thought would translate into a Big Ten title the other week. But we saw makes the NCAA finals back in 2023. That's a Spencer Lee win in the semifinals. Does not All-American last year. And then this year comes out on a tear. Does not lose until the Big Ten finals. Not that that's any indication of what I think is going to happen necessarily, but I do happen to have him losing to Lillidahl here in the finals. So that's your championship matchup. I had a semifinal of Luke Lillidahl against Vincent Robinson of North Carolina State, and I have Matt Ramos beating Jet Strickenberger of West Virginia in the semifinals. The 60th, I think, making a run. So the way I broke it down in the wrestlebacks, I have Caleb Smith of Nebraska finishing in 3rd. Richie Figs making a nice run from Arizona State. He'll take 4th. I actually have Figs falling to Rutgers' Dean Peterson in the 2nd round. I just have a feeling that Dean could beat anybody on any given day, and I do have a feeling that he's going to get him there, but he'll lose a second time to Vincent Robinson just based on, if you look at the total package of what's gone on this year. This weight class is so very random, so this could totally get blown up in the first day for all we know. But I do have Smith finishing 3rd, Richie Figs finishing 4th. I actually have V-Rob finishing 5th. He'll beat Jet Strickenberger for 6th, or he'll finish in 6th, I should say. And then I do have Dean Peterson over Eddie Ventresca for that 7th, 8th spot. So those are your All-Americans. I like Dean's matchup with Ventresca. Haven't beaten him already before. They didn't wrestle this year in the dual meet. Peterson was out after he got concussed against Vincent Robinson. That was we're talking about in the November duels when Rutgers took on NC State and Virginia Tech, respectively. So, Lillidahl is your champion. Ramos in 2nd. I got Caleb Smith in 3rd. Figs in 4th. V-Rob in 5th. Strickenberger in 6th. Peterson 7th. And Ventresca in 8th place. So, let's move on. We're going to go to 133 now. And now with 133, kind of the same thing as 125, can be a little bit random right here. There's a lot of great guys at the top, of course. You would think that some of these favorites are going to end up winning these brackets, but we know it's the NCAA Wrestling Tournament. You get a mix of everything, and it's so hard to pick upsets here because there are upsets in pretty much every weight class that you're not going to see coming, especially in that first round on Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, whatever you want to call it. That's a wild day because, again, everyone wrestles, and you're like, okay, we can pretty much pick chalk here and here, but there's always an upset you don't see coming. So in this one, I do have Little Rock's Nasir Bailey beating Lucas Bird for the title. Now, the popular pick probably is Iowa's Drake Ayala to get one back over Lucas Bird, who beat him in the Big Ten Finals the other week. But I've been picking Nasir Bailey all season long. He landed the 3 seed. He's 21-3 on the season. He was my preseason pick. And then when I reevaluated midseason, I did still stick with Nasir Bailey to win it all. So I'm going to stick to my guns, going to stick with Nasir Bailey. I have him taking out Drake Ayala in the semifinals, and I have Lucas Bird beating Tyler Knox, so I have making a little bit of a run from Stanford. I actually have him upsetting Seth Romney of Cal Poly in the second round and taking out Ethan Oakley from North Carolina, almost in Northern Colorado. Dominic Serrano of Northern Colorado, I have him losing to Oakley in the second round. So Bird over Knox in the semis, and I have Bailey over Bird for the title. So Nasir Bailey 1, Lucas Bird 2, and then going down the list for the All-American spots. I'm high on my guy Dylan Shawver, by the way. I know I'm a Rutgers guy. I love picking my Rutgers guys and seeing what their paths could be to an All-American status. But I think Shawver, when he wrestles his best, and again, you're always counting on if they wrestle their best, if they're healthy, so on and so forth. I think he can put it together. When the lights come on, he usually wrestles well. I know he had a tough Big Ten tournament, lost to Ayala in the semis, and then kind of slipped back a little bit. Not to worry. I think he's going to turn it back up in the wrestle back, so he'll win a few. I actually think Ayala's going to finish third, though. I think he does beat Dylan Shawver again in that third, fourth place match. So Ayala third, Shawver fourth. But I think Shawver could wrestle all the way back and get to that third place match. I had him getting to the quarters, actually, beating Nick Bouzakis in the second round, and then actually, I should say yes, he'll beat Bouzakis. He's 1-1, I believe, against Bouzakis in his career. So I think Shawver wins the rubber match there, but he'll fall to Ayala in the quarters. Ayala, it seems like he has his number, and I think Ayala is just above a lot of guys, and that's why it's maybe a little bit of a surprise that I have Bailey winning this one. But again, if you told me any of those top 10 guys, those top 10 seeds ended up winning this bracket, I would not be surprised. I just think with the way it just shakes out, some guys peak better than others. Just the way sometimes some of these matches beforehand, maybe a close match beforehand, a very gritty type of match. I think Ayala, honestly, is going to roll through his first two matches, even over a guy like Anthony Noto. So I have Ayala in the semis. I have Shawver losing to him in the quarters. I actually do have Shawver wrestling all the way back again, as I mentioned before, to wrestle Ayala for the third. So Bailey 1, Bird 2, Ayala 3, Dylan Shawver I got fourth. And then in the fifth place match, I have Oakley over Knox in a rematch as well. So a lot of rematches in these wrestlebacks. And then for 7th, 8th, I actually have Connor McGonigal over Braden Davis of Penn State, who I actually have getting to the quarters, losing to Lucas Bird. And I do have Davis wrestling back, getting to the blood round, but I do have Virginia Tech's Connor McGonigal over Braden Davis in that 5th place match. So once again, Bailey 1 from Little Rock, Bird from Illinois 2, Ayala Shawver 3rd, 4th, and then Oakley, Knox 5th, 6th. And then you go McGonigal and Braden Davis for 7th and 8th, and that is your 133-pound bracket for NCAAs this year. So let's move on to 141. 141 pounds as we advance down the brackets. Let's look ahead. And I have a repeat champion. Might not be the one you think, but I do have Andrew Alirez winning this bracket. Now, if I go back to my preseason picks, I had him in the running. This was very difficult to pick initially, but I did actually pick Alirez in the preseason over Jesse Mendez, and then I stuck with it midseason. So this is the second straight pick where I'm kind of sticking to my guns here. I go back to 125 as well when I actually had Richie Figgs repeating this year. But then I have changed that, of course, and I was actually I stuck with a lot of my picks, actually. I think through 125 to 165, I stuck with my preseason picks at the midseason mark, except now I am going, of course, as I mentioned before, with Luke Lildahl from Penn State at 125. But I'm sticking with Andrew Alirez all the way through. I have him over Jesse Mendez in the finals. I do have Mendez knocking off Bartlett in the semifinals. That's going to be another great match. I know Bartlett took the lead in their series 3-2. They will wrestle again. They just bound to wrestle again in the semifinals. I do have Mendez over Von Bauer in the quarters and Bartlett over CJ Compasto of Penn in the quarters as well. So this is just a absolutely loaded bracket, and you can't go wrong with, it's hard to pick upsets, but there's bound to be upsets, right? So, but again, I do have Mendez over Bartlett in the semis, and I have Aliers actually over Josh Coran. So 1 through 4 to me are going to make the semis here at 141. So Aliers over Quarterhand. And then I have Aliers over Mendez in the finals. Just I have a gut feeling. I think Aliers is going to wrestle out of that 8th seed. He's going to take out Brock Hardy in the quarters. I think Brock Hardy's wrestling absolutely fantastic. I do have him finishing on the podium, but I think Aliers is going to be able to turn it up a notch once he gets back underneath the NCAA lights the first time since he won the title in Tulsa in 2023. So Aliers over Mendez, and then going down to the wrestlebacks, I have Bo Bartlett finishing 3rd. I have him over Vance Von Bauer in that match. So Von Bauer finishes 4th from Minnesota. And then I have Brock Hardy from Nebraska finishing 5th over Josh Coderhan of Navy, who's going to finish 6th. And UNI's Cale Happel over CJ Compasto for 7th, 8th place. So I think a lot of those guys I already mentioned are going to get on the podium. So, but again, Andrew Aliers to me, he's the guy, and it's hard for me to get off my picks. And I've stuck with a lot of picks this year. So this is to be the second straight way where I've stuck with the same guy all through the season, not backing down now. So give me Andrew Aliers to win it all at 149 in Philadelphia. We'll move on to 149, moving right along here. Now this one, sticking with it again, Caleb Henson, Virginia Tech. It's hard not to pick him. He's undefeated. There's a reason why he's undefeated. He's the best guy in the country. I don't think anybody has surpassed him this year. There's a big three-way race in the Big Ten for that. I know Cannon Webster made a big move as well for Illinois in the Big Ten finals last week, but you got guys like Shane Van Ness, Rich Lovett, Kyle Parko. Now you throw Cannon Webster in the mix. The Big Ten is loaded this way, but Caleb Henson to me just stands above the rest. I have him over Kyle Parko in the semis. Then I do have Rich Lovett over Shane Van Ness in the other semifinals. So a 1 versus 5 matchup. I had Parko over Panero Johnson of Iowa State in the quarters, but I do have Henson over Lovett in the finals this year. I think Lovett can get back to the finals. Looks really good. Would it surprise me if he won the national title? No. But to me, it's unless Caleb Henson gets knocked off, it's going to be hard to, again, I should say, that's a kind of a weird and stupid statement to make, but unless Caleb Henson gets knocked off, if Henson's in the finals, I'll put it simpler. If he's in the finals, he's not going to lose. And I think if he gets picked off beforehand, then I think Lovett's the best guy. He's the next guy up. I think Lovett would be the guy to win. But if Henson loses prior, then it's anybody's guess. It could be any of those Big Ten guys. It could be a guy like Real Buto from UNI. He looks as the 10 seed. This weight to me gets a little bit more wide open without Henson coming off the top side. Because then you look at guys like Kyle Parko or Panero Johnson on the top side. The bottom side is absolutely loaded because you have Shane Van Ness, Ridge Lovett, you got guys like Real Buto. I have Sammy Alvarez from Ryder making a bit of a run, the former Rutgers and Oklahoma State wrestler. To me, he's wrestling the best he's ever wrestled. He's at 149, more comfortable weight than he's ever been in his career. I have him actually getting to the quarters, losing to Shane Van Ness. But I think if Henson gets knocked off before the finals, then it's anybody's game, especially in that bottom part of the bracket. So Henson over Lovett is my pick at 149. Going to the wrestlebacks, I have Shane Van Ness finishing 3rd over Kyle Parko finishing 4th. Lachlan McNeil, almost forgot about him. I have him finishing in 5th. Making sure I'm getting my names mixed up here. Let's see. I have to go back a little bit. Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure I have my chicken scratchers right there. But I do have Lachlan McNeil of North Carolina, who I actually have Sammy Alvarez beating in the second round. But I think he's going to wrestle all the way back, and he will get to 5th place. I actually have him over Sammy Alvarez in a rematch for that 5th, 6th spot. So McNeil 5th, Sammy Alvarez 6th, and I have Ethan Stiles of Oregon State. I have him finishing 7th, and I'm going to have him over Cannon Webster of Illinois. I think Webster's going to be able to wrestle back quite well. He's going to have a tough road beating guys like Princeton's Ty Whalen, Panero Johnson, the blood run I have him just based on how I mapped out my bracket. But just to recap, Henson number 1, Lovett's going to be 2, Shane Van Ness 3, Parko 4, McNeil 5, Alvarez 6, Stiles 7th, and Cannon Webster will finish 8th. Those are your All-Americans at 149. So let's move to 157. as we're about halfway through now. Tyler Kasek, tough not to pick him as well. Another 1 seed to me winning it. He'll be the second Penn State wrestler to win a national title. Should be going weight class order, of course. I have Luke Lillidahl, and now, of course, Tyler Kasek at 157. I have him over Meyer Shapiro. I was at Ivy's the other week. Looked great, Meyer Shapiro. He's looked great, pretty much great all season long, 11-1. Only loss was via the injury default, so everyone worries about, the competition he's wrestled leading up to it, only 12 matches. Obviously dealt with the concussion, has to wear that funky headgear. But I think Shapiro's the best guy in the country, not named Tyler Kasek. Now, can Shapiro win this bracket? Yes, he can. But I do have Shapiro get into the finals for Cornell. But Kasek just been on a new level this season since moving up a weight after finishing third last year. So I will go with Tyler Kasek over Meyer Shapiro. I have Kasek over Hippolito of Virginia Tech in the semis, and Shapiro over Antrell Taylor in the semifinals on the bottom side of the bracket. So Ryder Downey, to me, third place for UNI. Have him over Antrell Taylor, who's going to finish fourth. Over in fifth place, I have Ja'Cory Teemer making a bit of a run. I had him winning his first-round match, but Shapiro beating him, which would be a fascinating second-round matchup. But I do have Teemer. Now, again, he's one of those guys, if healthy, he's a lot better than most of these guys in the bracket. And, he's not a true 18 seed, but based on the way he's wrestled this year with the injuries and the lack of matches, being 8-4, he is an 18 seed. But I do have him actually picking it up in the Brestlebacks. I think he can do it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he does fifth place for Ja'Cory Teemer. Have him over Rafael Hippolito, who's going to finish sixth. And then I have Ohio State's Brandon Cannon, who's been on fire this year as a freshman. Have him finishing seventh over Penn's Jude Swisher. I think Penn's going to have a great tournament. I just love the way they've been wrestling all season long. So I have Cannon over Swisher for 7th, 8th. So once again, Kasek 1, Shapiro 2. I have Downey 3rd, Taylor 4th, Teemer 5th, Hippolito 6th. And then I'm going Cannon 7th and Jude Swisher in 8th place. So let's move on to 165. It's tough to not pick chalk here, right? Mitchell Messenbrink, third Penn State champion this week. This will be on Saturday night, of course. Mitchell Messenbrink is your champ. He'll stay undefeated this year. He had a very close match with Mikey Caliendo, which I did not expect in the Big Ten Finals. If it one takedown match, Caliendo closed the gap at least in that match, but has yet to beat him. I still don't think he's going to be able to do it. He may have closed the gap, but Messenbrink he's just that much better than everybody else. So I have Messenbrink over Caliendo, and then Caliendo over Peyton Hall of West Virginia in the semis. While on the flip side, Terrell Barraclaw to me, top four seeds again, making the semis for me. Again, we're bound to have upsets. There's no way that we can have chalk like this, all the time. But I do have Terrell Barraclaw from Utah Valley, finally getting his chance in the varsity lineup after spending all his years at Penn State. He'll wrestle his former teammate. He'll fall short. Messenbrink over Barraclaw, and then Messenbrink over Caliendo in the finals. I do have Barraclaw wrestling all the way back, though, to finish third. I had him over, over Hunter Garvin, by the way, of Stanford in the Conti semis, and I have him over Peyton Hall in the third place match. So Barraclaw third, Peyton Hall fourth, and then the fifth place match. I like Cam Ramin. I just like the way he's wrestling. He shows up in March. He shows up at this tournament. Have him making the quarterfinals, falling to Messenbrink, but I have Cam Ramin wrestling back, finishing fifth over Stanford's Hunter Garvin. And then I have Julian Ramirez of Cornell finally getting onto the podium, 7th place. And I love the way Brock Mantanona has been wrestling this year for Michigan. I think Michigan's going to have a special one right there in the Mantanona brothers. Obviously he's wrestling right now. Mantanona looking just absolutely fantastic. Excuse me, just Bo Mantanona. Take that back. Bo Mantanona. Brock will wrestle next year for Michigan, but I think both those guys are going to be absolutely fantastic. But I do have Bo Mantanona getting to the All-American podium. He'll finish 8th. So once again, Messenbrink 1, Caliendo 2, Barraclaw 3, Peyton Hall 4, Cam Ramin 5th, Hunter Garvin 6th, Julian Ramirez 7th, and Bo Mantanona of Michigan, finishing in 8th place. That is 165. So now let's move on to 174. Loaded weight class. Going to be really fun. I think this will be a great 1-2 final. Keegan O'Toole over Levi Haynes. The popular pick probably is to go Levi Haynes here just because he looks healthier, looks more dominant right now. I know O'Toole's undefeated, and he won an epic match over Dean Amity in the Big 12 Finals, so I think he's going to have a great run as well. Hamidi on the same side as Haynes, so I have Haynes over Hamidi on that bottom half, and I do have Keegan O'Toole over Cornell's Simon Ruiz, by the way, in the semifinals to get to the championship. Now, O'Toole already beat Haynes, so I think that does help him. And I think the fact that, again, I know O'Toole was out for a little while. I think it was around 2 months, by the way, with injury. But the fact that he already beat Haynes and the way he didn't really run through the Big 12 tournament, of course, but he won the Big 12 title and he had the third best guy in the country. So your three best guys in the country are O'Toole, Haynes, and Hamidi. I don't think there's any debate about that right now, considering they have 2 combined losses between the 3 of them. And then, O'Toole 16-0, Hamidi's 22-1, Haynes is 20-1. That record is nearly immaculate between all 3 of them. But when you break it down, I think the way O'Toole was able to grind it out in an overtime win over Dean Hamidi, that's going to give him a boost going into NCAAs. And I think that proved a little bit further that he's healthier than maybe people thought he was going to be. So I'm going to stick to my guns. I had Keegan O'Toole at the preseason mark. I'm going to stick to that as well. By the way, I actually I had Meyer Shapiro winning the title preseason and midseason, but I did switch over to Tyler Kasich the way he's been wrestling this year. So I flipped on Shapiro, but I'm sticking with Messenbrink. And by the way, look at this. Keegan O'Toole, by the way, I had him preseason. I changed it to Levi Haynes midseason. I'm going back to Keegan O'Toole. So I've been flip-flopping on these 2 guys all season long. I'm going to go with Keegan O'Toole over Levi Haynes for the national title. He'll get number 3, end his college career. Missouri is one of the greatest wrestlers in school history. If not the greatest, you can make an argument. You never know. But I like Keegan O'Toole over Levi Haynes. And then 3rd place, Dean Hamidi over Simon Ruiz of Cornell. So I have Hamidi 3rd, Ruiz 4th. Lenny Pinto of Nebraska wrestling back getting to 5th. Carson Harchla of Ohio State finishing 6th. Patrick Kennedy 7th. And then I do have Garrett Thompson of Ohio finishing 8th. Now, I know there's controversy about this bracket. Everyone's looking at the 29 seed right now, Tyler Brennan of Little Rock. And at the time of this recording, he is still wrestling. There's an eligibility issue allegedly with him that he wasn't supposed to be wrestling this year, but he has. They're looking into it. Since the news came out a few days ago, there's been no update. If he is out, then the guys below him slide up and they throw in the alternate at the 33rd seed. But as of right now, he is in the bracket. Now, I'm not saying that's going to vastly affect things. Now, my guy Jackson Turley would go from the 30th seed wrestling Dean Hamidi first round up to the 29th seed wrestling Garrett Thompson in the first round. Now, would that give Turley a better draw? Probably. And as a Rutgers guy, I'm going to say, yeah, it might give him a better draw on the backside. Who knows? But you look at, I don't think it's going to vastly affect the tournament whether Brennan's in or not. I still have Thompson finishing on the podium. But that is something to look out for. So, again, at the time of this recording, nothing has changed. He's still in the tournament. Little Rock still has their 74-pounder in there for the NCAA championships. And, of course, I forgot to switch that thing over to 174. So just to recap real quick for you folks out there, 174, by the way. Let's go back real quick. 174, Keegan O'Toole 1, Levi Haynes 2, Dean Hamidi 3, Simon Ruiz 4, Lenny Pinto 5, Carson Harchla 6, Patrick Kennedy 7, and Garrett Thompson in 8th place. So let's move on to 184. And now I did switch the graphic for you guys. So 184, everyone's waiting for this one. Probably should end the night, right? Carter Sirachi going for number 5. He will get number 5. I don't have him losing. He'll finish undefeated. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins to get to the national title. National title number 5. 5 wins for number 5. So he'll finish 26-0. I have Carter Sirachi winning, but your surprise right here, I have him beating Max McAnally of Minnesota. Yes, I am going to do it. I didn't want to. I was debating this all week since the brackets came out, especially since they put Dustin Plott at number 4, so they put him away from Parker Keckeisen. Keckeisen, of course, 2-time national finalist, won the title last year in dominant fashion. To me, he had my vote for the Hodge Trophy last year because he bonused his way through the entire season pretty much. But I've been high on McAnally pretty much since he was a redshirt when he was in redshirt, I should say, last season, undefeated. His only loss of his career count his redshirt year and his redshirt freshman year this season when he's actually on varsity. Only loss is in sudden victory to Carter Sirachi. I don't think he's going to be able to pick him off even if he gets to the finals. But I do have Max McAnally knocking off Parker Keckeisen, and that might be mind-boggling to hear because there's Carter Sirachi, there's Parker Keckeisen, and there's everybody else. But I think the gap has now been closed where it's Carter Sirachi, Keckeisen, and McAnally, then everybody else. Or I should say Sirachi, Keckeisen, and McAnally, Plott, then everybody else. So that's pretty much your tiers at 184. So I got Starachi over McAnally in a stunner over Parker Keckeisen in the semifinals. I do think Keckeisen is going to wrestle back and get third place. I love Parker Keckeisen. I've talked to him before on this podcast. He is awesome, represents you and I with total class, and he's one of the all-time greats that I've seen over the last, let's just say 5 to 7 years with the way he's progressed throughout his career. He is so awesome. He just happens to be in the way of an all-time great. All-time greats with Aaron Brooks a couple years ago, and of course now Carter Starachi now. But Keckeisen is an all-time champion for you and I, one of the best wrestlers in that school's history, in my opinion. But I do think Max McAnally, it's his time. I really think so. I think Max McAnally has shown all season long that he's here. He's not waiting for Carter Starachi to leave. He's gonna go after him. I think they're gonna have a nice finals rematch. I don't think it's gonna go to overtime this time. I think Starachi, with the gamesmanship and of course the championship experience, he'll get him in regulation. Maybe along the lines of maybe like a 6-2 match or something along those lines, where he gets maybe it's 3-2 late, gets a clinching takedown, win 6-2 or something along those lines. I got Starachi over McAnally. Keckeisen for third over Dustin Plott again. So Plott finishes fourth. I have Chris Foca of Cornell in fifth over Gabe Arnold of Iowa, finishing sixth. And then Silas Allred of Nebraska beating Illinois' Edmund Ruth for seventh, eighth. So once again, Starachi 1, McAnally 2, Keckeisen 3, Dustin Plott 4, Foca 5, Arnold 6, Allred 7th, and Ruth in 8th. I know, Big Ten heavy right here at 184. I think Gabe Arnold is due for a bit of a run right here. Won't get the matchup against Carter Starachi, unfortunately, but I think he's going to go on a bit of a run. So we're going to move on now to 197, 2 weight classes to go. We have AJ Ferrari. I'm going Mr. Fast Twitch. I'm doing it. The number 3 seed from Cal State Bakersfield, 17-0 in the season. He'll finish undefeated, wins his second national title, and he'll have the ability to win 2 more, try to be a 4-timer. I think Ferrari's going to do it. I know his only big win, so to speak, was the Pac-12 finals over Little Rock's Stephen Little. But I do think Ferrari gets it done, man. It's just hard for me to say that anybody's going to beat his defense. I think he has the best defense at this weight class, some of the best defense in the country, pound for pound. I think he'll get Stephen Buchanan once again. He's beaten him before, Buchanan on a different level, but we've seen this year that now he's a little bit vulnerable. Only 1 loss this year. I know, hard to say vulnerable, but he is beatable. Jacob Cardenas got him. The Michigan man is the number 1 seed. I stuck with Carter Starachi all year long. I've stuck with Cardenas all year long till now. I think Ferrari gets it done. I have a funny feeling he's going to do it. I have Ferrari over Cardenas in the finals, and I've stuck with Cardenas all year, but just the last couple of weeks, just thinking about it, I really think Ferrari's going to end up getting it done. I got Ferrari over Cardenas. He'll make a run. He'll beat guys like Serber and Josh Barr. I think he's going to beat out Josh Barr again in the NCAA semi. So I have Cardenas over Barr and Ferrari over Buchanan in the semis, but Ferrari over Cardenas for the finals. Buchanan over Barr for third, fourth. So Ferrari 1, Cardenas 2, Buchanan 3rd, Josh Barr 4th. I have Michael Beard of Lehigh finishing 5th over Stephen Little of Little Rock. I think he's going to get back on the podium. He'll finish 6th. I have Max Stout, by the way, finishing 7th from Pitt over his brother, Luke Stout of Princeton. I do think Princeton gets a guy on the podium. I think Stout's the guy to do it. Now, this is interesting because the Stout brothers are in line to wrestle each other second round, which I actually have them wrestling in the second round. I have no knowledge of how much they know each other's styles off the top of my head. All I know is Max Stout is really, really good. And all I know is Luke Stout is really, really good. I've seen Stout up close and Luke Stout up close in person multiple times. Was there for the Ivy League championships just the other week. Luke Stout to me is going to get on the podium this year. He'll be a Princeton. He'll be an All-American for Princeton this year. That staff's done a great job, kind of revitalizing that program after a rebuilding year last year. Joe Dubuque, Anthony Ashnault, Cody Brewer doing a fantastic job over there. They have multiple NCAA qualifiers, guys that are actually going to be, threats, especially on the backside. I think Luke Stout finally gets it done for himself. But unfortunately, I don't know how I'm picking this. I don't know how they're going to feel about it, but I do have Max Stout beating Luke twice in this tournament, which is kind of mind-boggling. And as I was going through the brackets and as I was kind of going through the wrestlebacks and matching up these guys and who I think is going to win in each individual match, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have them wrestle twice in this tournament. That I couldn't believe, but as I was going through, I'm like, oh my God, it's going to happen. So Max Stout over Luke Stout for 7th, 8th, which is unbelievable. So Ferrari 1, Cardenas 2, Buchanan 3, Barr 4, Beard 5, Little 6, Max Stout 7, Luke Stout 8th. That is 197. And now we move on to the finale right here, 285, which I don't think it's going to, I think 84 is going to end the night, especially if Starachi's in the finals. They'll want to end with history there. But this one is, hate to say it, but it's Gable Steveson. Next topic, just a quote, bashing the brain over there. Max Stout. See, now I'm stuck on the Stouts right now. Gable Steveson. Next topic. How do you pick against Gable Steveson? I really don't know. You can't. He beat Greg Kirkfleet soundly in the Big Ten Finals the other week. He proved it to me. No one's beaten him. Gable Steveson all the way. I do have Kirkfleet, though, beating Wyatt Hendrickson, which I wanted to pick Wyatt Hendrickson to get to the finals finally and beat Greg Kirkfleet and then see what he could do against Gable, which this version of Wyatt Hendrickson, I just want to see against Gable Steveson. I unfortunately don't think we're going to get there. And just to keep you, and just to also a little context too, I had Greg Kirkfleet over Hendrickson in the preseason before Gable came back. Now that Stevenson's back, had him over Kirkfleet, and I'm going to stick to that pick. Gable Steveson over Greg Kirkfleet, and I would love to see Wyatt Hendrickson win over Kirkfleet just to see what he could do against Gable. Which I don't think anybody's going to be Gable anyway, but I just want to see that. I want to see that fresh matchup. I don't think we're going to get it. Steveson over Kirkfleet. I think Kirkfleet's just too good for anybody not named Gable Steveson, even Wyatt Hendrickson. This version of Wyatt Hendrickson, who's at Oklahoma State, not Air Force, who's being coached by David Taylor, an Olympic gold medalist and a Penn State legend. It is different, and that's nothing against Air Force's room, but Hendrickson, as a lot of guys have done this year at Oklahoma State, have leveled up under David Taylor and that staff. So I have Steveson over Kirkfleet for the finals. I have Hendrickson over Ben Keeter, by the way, who I think is going to finish. I think Keeter's going to have a great tournament. I think he really proved some of the Big Tens the other week. He's going to have a great NCAA tournament. Hendrickson over Keeter for third, fourth. I have Nick Feldman of Ohio State finishing fifth, and Colton Schultz finishing sixth from Arizona State. Owen Treffin, I have him making a bit of a run. Lehigh's undefeated heavyweight getting to the quarters. I think he's actually going to get picked off, though, by Feldman. I have Steveson over Feldman in the semis and Kirk over Hendrickson in the semis. So I do have Feldman over Schultz, and then I have Treffin winning seventh place right here. I actually have Jaroslav Slavakovsky. I haven't finishing eighth. I haven't getting back to the podium now. This is a big, big asterisk for me. Now, you might say Rutgers homerism right here, and that's fine. Yar's been one of the best guys. He's been a top 10 guy in the country all season long. This is not totally Rutgers homerism. This is injury dependent right here. I think Yar has a chance to get back on the podium if that shoulder holds up. Now, apparently that shoulder injury obviously wasn't good enough where he lost in the Big Ten quarters to Josh Heinzelman of Michigan, and that forced him to medically default out of the tournament. Tough right there for Yara, but I do think that he can. I do think he can do it if that shoulder holds up. Yara to me can get through the wrestlebacks. I do have him winning his first round matchup, but of course he'll run into Gable in the second round. And then for Yara's wrestlebacks, I do have him over Trevor Tinker of Cal Poly. A rematch against Luffman. Now Yara could lose right here, especially with the injury, but he's beaten Luffman already. I think he gets him again. Then he's got Jimmy Mullen, who he has beaten already. He can get him again. Now, again, these are just big toss-ups. I'm kind of just relying on the fact that his shoulder is going to be good enough to get through these grinds of matches. These are going to be very, very tight heavyweight matches over Luffman, over Jimmy Mullen, who I think is a dark horse to get on the podium, maybe a little bit higher on the podium as well. I have Mullen actually making the quarterfinals, losing to Greg Kirkfleet out of that 11th seed spot. But I do have Yara over Mullen in the blood round, and then that's where I think Yara is going to fall to Ben Keeter of Iowa, and then Yara will, he'll be on the podium. For all we know, he could win in the blood round and then medically default out. Who knows if that shoulder's that bad? You never know. We don't want lifelong injuries. I'm throwing out all scenarios right there. But to me, even if the shoulder's banged up and it's not good, if it's not good enough for Yara, and I'm making a case for the Rutgers guy right now. But if Yara's not good enough shoulder-wise, I still think he wins that first-round matchup, loses to Gable, and then from there, it probably gets one, maybe two wins on the backside and falls either in the round of 16 or the blood round at that point, with the shoulder maybe just being too much against really top-tier guys like Luke Luffman and Jimmy Mullen, just for example, the way I had the bracket broken out. So I do think Yara's getting on the podium. Maybe that's homerism. Call me biased. Whatever. You cannot predict these things 100%. All Americans all the way down. So just to recap, Gable 1, Kirkfleet 2, Hendrickson 3, Keeter 4, Feldman 5, Schultz 6, Treffin 7, and Jaroslav Slavakovsky will finish in 8th place. And there you go. There's my predictions. And just to run it down real quick, as far as this is concerned here. All my champions will go back in order once again. Luke Lillidahl, Penn State at 125. Nasir Bailey at 133 from Little Rock. 141 will be Andrew Ramirez of Northern Colorado. 149 is Caleb Henson of Virginia Tech. Penn State's Tyler Kasek winning at 157. 165 will be Penn State's Mitchell Messenbrink. I have Keegan O'Toole of Missouri winning at 174. Penn State's Carlos Daracha getting number 5 at 184. AJ Ferrari of Cal State Bakersfield, and who knows where next year, he'll be at 197. And Gable Steveson rounding it out at heavyweight from Minnesota, getting his 3rd NCAA title as well. So there's my chicken scratch. It's all written down. It's all set in stone on this on these pieces of paper. It's set in stone on this podcast, and it'll be set in stone in written format on On3.com. So this is On3 Wrestling. Be sure to follow me on social media. Check out our content at On3.com. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. Let me know where my picks are right. Let me know where they're wrong. You know, call me out for ridiculous picks. Call me out for great picks as well. I want to hear what you guys have to think, and we'll see you out in Philadelphia for the 2025 NCAA Wrestling Championships.